Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode. I'm Alexander Creek, astrologer and intuitive. We're going to be talking about Mars and Cancer today. I'm really excited to talk about it. It's a really fascinating transit. It's also a really long Mars transit. We're going to talk about what it means generally, what it might mean for your sign as well. A little business to get out of the way first. Reminder that if you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you're liking and subscribing, maybe leaving a comment, letting me know maybe what your sign is and how you're experiencing this energy. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, remember that YouTube exists too if you want to see. If you're watching YouTube and you're like, I want to listen to this on the go, I don't want to stare at you for an hour, search my name, Alexander Creek, or To the Stars, Alexander Creek, on Spotify or Apple or anywhere else you get your podcast, and you can subscribe to the audio only podcast there. I'm also offering special eclipse readings for this eclipse season. So if something's in the air for you, if you're experiencing a lot of changes, if you're wanting a reading about what's going on in your chart, where I talk to you about the eclipses, about other astrological transits or personal cycles that you may be experiencing, there are limited slots available. So head to my website, dogstarOracle.com, to go ahead and grab yours. So let's go ahead and talk about Mars in Cancer. Okay, so Mars in Cancer is a very significant cycle for the end of 2024 and also going into 2025. This is significant because Mars spends maybe like 2 months in a sign, and it's going to spend a really long time in Cancer with a little brief detour in Leo. So it is in Cancer from early September until April 19th, 2025, essentially. For much of November and December, it will be in Leo, and I will talk about that specific energy when we get to it. And this is all because Mars, when it gets into, I think, about 6 degrees of Leo, it actually stations retrograde and it goes all the way back into Cancer. So anytime that we have like Venus or Mars retrograde, or Mercury too, obviously, but Venus and Mars retrogrades are a little bit a little bit rarer, and they're definitely, it's kind of like an exclamation point, and definitely worth looking into. So I also have Mars in Cancer in my birth chart, and it actually happens to be my ruling planet because I'm Scorpio rising. So Mars in traditional astrology rules over both Scorpio and Aries. So Mars would be my most significant planet in my chart. It's called the ruling planet. So for me, I'm looking at this and I'm very fascinated. I'm like, what is happening? I can already feel this. So let's talk about it. So Mars represents our ability to take action, how we get what we want. It's our gas, it's our proverbial gas in the tank, it's our energy. It's physical energy, it's passion, it's how we fight, it's how we approach conflict, right? Mars kind of represents like heat, energy, when I'm going to use these metaphors a lot, right? And like when we look at Mars in the night sky, it's this like red planet. Um, so Mars in the sign of Cancer is a very interesting combination because Mars does not feel super comfortable in the sign of Cancer. Cancer is a deeply feeling water sign. It's tender, it's emotional, and Cancer is all about our deeply felt relationships, especially our clan, our tribe, our family, or those that we would consider family. Um, Cancer kind of represents almost like this mother kind of nurturing archetype. Cancer is also a sign that has a very long emotional memory. It's very nostalgic. It's very connected to like tradition and the past, essentially. Maybe not tradition, but I would definitely say like the past. It's a very nostalgic energy. So, Mars being the planet of heat, war, conflict, knives, separation, cutting, it is not a very comfortable place for the planet of war to be. So in astrology, when a planet is either really comfortable and can do its job really easily and has the resources that it needs to do its job, it is said to be this is sort of known as the concept of, it's called essential dignity. So because Mars is exalted in the sign of Capricorn, meaning it's raised up to this very kind of elevated position, Mars does really well in these strategic, perseverant, perseverant a word? Perseverance. It does well in the sign of Capricorn because Capricorn is about strategy and perseverance, essentially. And so the opposite place of that would be Cancer. So it's considered to be in its fall. When Mars is in Cancer, it does not have its usual tools. If Mars in astrology is about heating things up, about conflict, about asserting oneself, about drive, about severing, about cutting things, um, Mars in Cancer, it's like, I have a spoon. How am I supposed to sort of wage war, essentially? And, Mars refers to sort of be on the field of battle. But in this case, the battlefield is the home, the kitchen, the family, the emotions. So, for all of us, and by the way, we are going to be talking about obviously a reading for your sign as well, but I'm just going to describe generally kind of the condition for Mars and Cancer and what we might experience in the collective, FYI. So, okay, so dealing with one's emotions, in I think a constructive, healthy way is going to be one of the key things that we are going to be dealing with as a collective while Mars is in Cancer. So when Mars is in Cancer, if you happen to have Mars in Cancer in your birth chart, you may know how difficult it might be to just assert yourself, to just say what you need, to say, hey, I didn't like when you called me a bitch last night, or whatever, or I don't know, or whatever it is. Mars in Cancer is a placement that might hold on to things for a really long time. It might end up being sort of passive aggressive, or like it might be thinking like, hey, I'm really mad at my partner, but instead of talking to you right away about this, I'm going to stew on this for hours until I feel comfortable talking to you. My father, who I suspect has Cancer placements in his chart, but I don't have his birth time, so I'm not for sure. He describes it as turtling, and because we have this in common where we'll both if we get mad about something, we'll just sort of like sulk for a while until I can like finally have the word to describe it, or I feel comfortable like asserting myself. So we all may find ourselves turtling a little bit or kind of going within that shell, which is an apt metaphor for the crab, because the crab has this sort of hard outer shell, but has a sort of tender kind of mushy meat inside. So with Mars and Cancer, it's like our emotions can be raging inside because Mars heats things up. It's like boiling water, essentially. So we have this boiling kettle of water inside. And the thing with Mars and Cancer is that sometimes that boiling kettle of water explodes. And for me, having Mars and Cancer in my chart, when I'm angry, I tend to cry, which is so annoying. so, um, so I do feel like collectively we may be dealing with a lot of maybe like repressed family or relationship stuff, emotions connected to that. If there's any like buried traumas, I wonder if this may just be coming out more in this Mars and Cancer period, or that these emotions that we're experiencing feel a lot more immediate, more volatile, and they're going to need to come out because Mars is anger, passion, and Cancer is emotion. It's tied to the past, it's tied to family. So we will be more connected to our emotions during Mars and Cancer, and they can feel more volatile than usual. So making sure that you are making clear decisions when you make decisions during Mars and Cancer is going to be important, because there may be a tendency to maybe make emotions from an emotional place rather than a clear logical place. So that would be something to notice with this placement, or to notice during this time period as well. Also, because Mars is in its fall. Oh, I mentioned this already. Sorry, hold on. Let's look here. My notes are all over the place, guys. So Mars being in Cancer can have a hard time being directly assertive or taking direct action. It may often second guess itself. It can feel guilty about asking for what it needs, or feel guilty about taking that direct Martian action. It might be, you might find there might be a vibe in the air, or if you are more prone to this, you might notice it a little bit more with Mars and Cancer. You might be thinking like, what does everyone else need? What about the group? What about everyone else's emotions? What about everyone else's needs? Or you can, after you take an action, it might feel like, ooh, I don't know if that feels comfortable. Like, I don't know if it felt good to just call out someone and say that they were being rude or something. It's like, what if I'm in the wrong? It just tends to question itself more. So I also wanted to point out something too, that Catherine Urban on her YouTube channel has a really wonderful video about Mars and Cancer, and she pointed out how the crab, which Cancer is the crab, the crab will often like sidestep or move in this more kind of more like passive way, or kind of like walk like this little, I don't know, I don't know if I can describe it, but you kind of know how crab walks. It doesn't just walk straight up to its destination. It kind of gets there in this like careful, almost sneaky way. So when it comes to taking action, when it comes to Mars things, we may actually benefit from being a little bit more careful, or a little bit more, we may come in a little bit more quietly. Like, so it, to me, this is kind of saying you're going to want to strike a balance between remembering to take direct action, to speak up for your needs, to assert yourself, but at the same time, like, don't come in super hot, essentially, because that could kind of backfire a little bit with Mars being in Cancer. Like, being mindful of people's emotions, but at the same time going for it, like having some kind of balance between these two. So one thing about a planet in fall or detriment, which Mars is in fall, is that it's going to express the qualities of that planet astrologically in a way that it's a little bit unusual, or it might kind of subvert expectations a little bit. In this case, because Cancer is tied to like children and family, Mars in Cancer is extremely protective. And it does really well when it comes to like advocating for the needs of other people. It does. It's interesting to me. I'm going to make a quick note about this, that Mars in Cancer, we will have Mars in Cancer during the US presidential election. And regardless of your politics or not, like, I'm pretty left wing, by the way. Like, I don't know if you can tell, I'm an out and proud queer man. And I think it'll be really interesting if and when Kamala Harris is elected, because it's like Mars in Cancer is talking about like I feel like we're going to be playing out some kind of mother wound. Like, we in modern society do not get the nurturing or safety or comfort that people need. I mean, and people are talking about in this electoral cycle about really basic things, about like the prices of groceries, like the welfare of children. Like, I feel like all of these things are going to be kind of raised up in a way that's a little bit more obvious and immediate during this election cycle, regardless of whatever side you are on. And I do feel like there is more of an urge to protect and take care of people in our society during Mars and Cancer who are more vulnerable, like home, family, things like children, families, all of that kind of stuff. So it's going to be interesting to me to see how this sort of plays out. Hold on, me. Okay. Because Cancer is ruled by the moon. The moon in astrology, among other things, because it does represent the emotions and home and family, because it rules Cancer, and as well as emotional memory because it rules Cancer. The moon also represents fluctuation and continual change. What other planetary body in our sky, luminary star, shifts as much as the moon, right? The moon changes signs every 2.5 days. We have, a new moon and a full moon every month. That lunar cycle in our sky is constantly fluctuating. So because Mars represents our motivation, vitality, and energy, having Mars be in Cancer means your motivation may kind of crest up and down like a wave, waning and waxing like the moon. So be kind with your energy levels. This is not a universal thing that's saying that everyone's motivation and energy is going to be up and down, but it is more likely to be the case with Mars and Cancer. You may feeling like getting at it one day, and then the next you're like, I've been working out for 5 days in a row. I actually feel like I need just a break from the gym today. I need to just like chill, right? So be kind with your body, be kind with your energy levels, be kind with your motivation. But when motivation does strike, or like when motivation hits you, this is a very comfortable place to me as someone, I think, with ADHD and like a neurodivergent brain. Is my motivation's like always up. I was very up and down. It's finding some kind of steady pace with your rhythms with Mars and Cancer, but also really listening to yourself. And if you really cannot force yourself to do something, this is kind of like going with the vibe going with the vibe here. And especially if you have significant Aries or Scorpio placements, as Mars rules these, like if you're Aries or Scorpio rising, Mars rules your first house of physical body and vitality. So you may notice again your physical vitality kind of going up and down, and really kind of this would be a time, if you have a lot of Aries and Scorpio, to really take care of your physical body and try not to push yourself too much. This is not, Mars in Cancer is not a time to push yourself to your limits, because that can frankly backfire on you. And especially because, lastly, because Cancer rules the stomach. It also rules the breasts as well, but it rules the stomach. So if you're prone to like a sensitive tummy, if you're someone with like a lot of Virgo placements, you might be prone to like really kind of sensitive digestive tummy stuff. This would be a time to be extra careful about what you put in your body, because Mars represents inflammation. And I've actually taken my own advice for once, because I was like, you know what? Even one drink of alcohol lately upsets my stomach. And so I've been really careful about, we're not drinking alcohol right now. We're being careful kind of what we put into our bodies. It's just like my chronic Caucasianness is like, oh, spicy food makes my tummy hurt right now. So that kind of thing you may notice a little bit more too. Lastly, I am going to add, before we get into the readings for the signs, that if you have Mars in Cancer, this is your Mars return. This, I think, could may be a more significant time for you. I can't really tell you how without like actually being able to look at your chart, because Mars rules different life areas and does different things in our charts. But one thing for sure, it's about our motivation and energy level. But because this is a more emotional Mars in Cancer, a more tender Mars cycle, a really more interesting Mars cycle with that Mars retrograde. And by the way, if you're wondering about what's Mars retrograde about, we're doing another video on it, believe me. But I want to talk about the basics of Mars in Cancer first. So let's go ahead and talk about what Mars in Cancer might represent for each of the rising signs. Okay, so if you are on YouTube, I have the chart pulled up. You can kind of follow along there. It's not really necessary if you're listening to the audio and you feel like you're missing something, but it does kind of show you the architecture of a chart and kind of where astrologers pull horoscopes from. So that might be something to check out in the future. So first of all, and like I mentioned before, you really want to listen to your rising sign or ascendant first, if you know that. If you don't, you'll need an accurate birth time. You can just go to astro.com or astro-seek.com and calculate that, and then come back. And then if you want, you could listen to your sun or your moon. But I really say the rising sign is kind of where it's at. But you may want to listen for your sun, or your sun if you're born during the daytime, or your moon if you're born at night, because that might give you a little bit of extra information. But I do place emphasis on the rising. So for Aries rising, Mars is going to be spending time in your 4th house. So kind of typical home and family things for you. So number one, Mars is motivation, action, energy. So there's going to be an unusual amount, basically, of, let's say, Mars is kind of like the planet. It's kind of like bang around and like hammer stuff and be loud. So it could, this could represent simply like, wow, we have a lot of home renovation projects planned. We have a lot of action that's gonna. I could see like a lot of action coming up for you with the home. There could just this could be like a more emotional thing, because Mars can also be conflict and strife. So this could be, hey, maybe family things are not the most harmonious right now. Maybe you're going to need to work out some sort of conflict with family. Or perhaps, home is just a lot more lively than usual, to the point, of you might be asking like, hey, what the hell is going on in my chart? And that's probably just Mars. That's probably just Mars in Cancer. So action, some inflammation, and maybe some conflict going on within the home, with your residence, where you're living, with family. With Taurus rising, Mars will be hanging out in your 3rd house of communication. So again, Mars is action, energy, motivation, but also inflammation and conflict. So this could be a time where you're really going to be focusing on like learning, studying something new. Really, there may be a lot of energy devoted toward like creating some kind of communication project or teaching something or writing something. Like you just may have a lot of drive in those areas. It could be that your words are just going to be a lot sharper. That that you just have like more of like a forked tongue than usual, or that you may have to, or that you may find yourself getting in just a more sharper edge debates or conversations than usual. And again, also this could also be about like some strife or some action or conflict involving siblings or neighbors. That could also be something that comes up here as well. And frankly, I would also kind of be careful just on your commute and on your with driving, because third house is like your commute, sort of short distance travel, your daily routines. You're more likely to flip someone off here in traffic, guys. Like, so granted, this is a very long period of time, like from now until April, but that's still just something to be mindful of. Is like, don't take unnecessary risks during your commute or with travel, essentially. For Gemini rising, Mars is going to be in your second house. So this is money and finances. So you may really be focused here on really, because Cancer is a sign that really likes security. So you may be really driven here to increase your material security, essentially. Bringing in another source of income. Like really working on budgeting and your finances. However, Mars can also be like burning a hole in your pocket as well. So some of it you may, have some control over, and some you may not. I'm gonna say for you, Gemini rising, you're gonna want to maybe put some extra money aside into savings. Have a little extra, because when Mars is in your second house, you are more likely to spend, or there's more likely that some kind of expense is going to come up. But at the same time, you may be really driven right now for more financial security. So I could see really kind of going after that bag with Mars and Cancer. For Cancer rising, Mars is going to be in your first house. You're going to be more action oriented and driven than usual. Because Cancer, this is an emotional sign. This could really kind of stoke the fires of your. It's like you're going to have more fire energy, like essentially. So more of an ability to take action to assert yourself. However, with Mars and Cancer, again, Mars and Cancer is a little bit more complicated. So if you feel about guilty about asserting yourself, don't. So this period from now until April, like I would say you may feel like you have more energy. This could be a time where you're like, I need to like get in the gym because I have a lot of excess physical martial energy. I need to go punch something right now. So like go punch a punching bag. This could just be a time when you're a little bit busier. I would not take risks with your physical health or vitality at this time, because Mars Mars, especially if you are born during the day, Mars can be a little bit more like challenging. And the first house can describe physical body and health. So I would not take necessary risks with your health. It's like, yes, exercise, yes, do all the things, but also take care of yourself and try not to push yourself too much, because this can also be inflammation of physical body. So you're going to want to take steps to kind of mediate that on some level. So at the same time, I do want to say this could be a very empowering time for you, of just a time where you are supposed to be kind of being like, hey, what about my needs? I'm actually first. I'm sick of taking care of everybody else. So Leo rising, Mars is going to be in your 12th house. This is a tricky energy. This can be, so the 12th house is a hidden place in your astrological chart. It talks about things that are hidden from you, things kind of going on with mental and emotional and spiritual health. The 12th house speaks to themes of isolation, of the ways that you maybe sabotage yourself, or people in your life that may kind of sabotage you without you realizing it, as well as themes of just like working alone, essentially. So Mars in the 12th here is interesting. I'm going to say you are going to want some more alone time. This would be I'm sometimes Mars kind of going through the 12th house, it can just feel a little bit more prickly than normal. Or but I'm going to say that, like, how do I want to describe Mars going through the 12th house? Give me just a moment here. Okay, so I'm gonna say again a desire for alone time. If you're someone who like likes to work out in a group or likes to work out with a friend, you may find yourself being like, I actually need a little space. I'm gonna go work out by myself. This can be a time when like you just may you may notice those thoughts, that might be a little bit more anxiety prone or something like that. I'm just gonna say that you're going to need time to kind of soothe oneself to work out alone. I think more time to sort of more time for sort of solo activities. Mars and Cancer may point out the ways that you may sabotage yourself. That It can point out like destructive habits that you have, that you do without realizing it. It also Mars going through your 12th house can also maybe point out people that may not actually like that claim to be in your corner, but that may not actually like 100% be putting you first or something like that. So it's an interesting transit. I think it's one that's going to sort of draw you inward. I'm also going to say you're going to be aware of like I'm going to say undigested emotions, because Cancer is about digestion in the stomach. So like undigested emotions, emotional traumas, things that need to be processed, I feel like will be kind of coming up for you. So I'm going to say during Mars and Cancer, it's going to be really important to how do I want to just be kind to yourself, be mindful of your emotions. And if you just feel a little off, and I'm not saying that like Mars in the 12th the entire time, it's like that's all negative, because it does serve a purpose, but it can feel a little bit uncomfortable. So just know that this is just the astrology, and this is temporary. So for Virgo, Virgo rising, Mars is going to be going through your 11th house. So more action, more motivation regarding friends, essentially, like being a part of a group, doing things like doing things that are like fire energy with friends. So let's go out and like cause some trouble. Like that's kind of like with my girls. It's kind of like that does kind of feel like a Mars in 11th house activity. It's so there's more energy here. I'm gonna say, as far as like I'm gonna say that this could be good for like professional networking, of like I'm going to go and associate with groups of people for a specific purpose to get what I want, is kind of a Mars in 11th house sort of thing or activity. One thing to be aware of too, this could be about potential conflict or strife with friends, within various groups that you belong to. This is kind of a transit where I'm like, oh, like, make sure not to start a fight on social media, because the 11th house is like social media groups as well. But again, simply a time where you could be more active in those groups, but Mars is hot, right? So it's going to cause like a little bit of heat there. The other thing is the 11th house represents your hopes, wishes, and goals for the future. So this could really be like a time when you're really driven to work on, or like whatever it is that you are trying to manifest, essentially. Like the 11th house is kind of like the dream board, and it's like, what do you want to work on? This is kind of my Mars and Cancer kind of thing for you. As far as Libra rising, Mars is going to be in your 10th house for most of the time. So action, motivation, energy to get ahead in your career, to get ahead at work, to achieve your career goals, to work on things connected to your profession. Mars is a planet that's sort of a little that's not the most socially graceful. So I would say there is a potential here to be in conflict with like coworkers, or maybe even authority figure, or like the boss. The 10th house also represents your public reputation. So you may not care as much of what people think about you, essentially. And so, but I would just be mindful, like if you're in a very kind of public facing position, or if you have like really a lot of public facing energy, that you're going to have Mars here, which can be empowering because if you frankly need to stand up for yourself within an online thing or public facing thing or at work, this can be helpful, but can also be like, it's Mars can also frankly start fires, right? So we just kind of want to be mindful that we are not purposely going out of our way to piss people off within work, career, authority figures. But I do really feel like you are going to be working on your career a lot, or there's simply going to be a lot of action within career for you. For Scorpio rising, Mars is your ruling planet, so this is extra important for you. Mars does rule your sixth house of physical health as well as first house of physical body. So make sure that you're taking care of your health at this time. Make sure that you're taking your digestive health as well. Or even things connected to the breasts, like if you have breasts, this would not be a year that I would like skip like a checkup or like a mammogram or something. You'd want to go just make sure all that stuff is being taken care of. So but Mars is going to be in your ninth house the whole time that Mars is in Cancer. So Mars is the ninth house is connected to your beliefs, your philosophy, what you think politically, as well as your spirituality. So you could really be like defending your beliefs right now. You could feel extra passionate about them. The ninth house is also connected to higher education. So you could really be committed to your education or learning something new, something connected to spirituality or astrology, or something connected to like the sciences or philosophy or something connected to that. If you're a teacher, you could really find yourself that you're really getting active in the teaching space. Like you're doing a lot of teaching right now. This could also be a time where you're really like there's a lot of action around travel. I'm going to say if you're traveling right now, just kind of be careful. This would not be the time that I would go out and be like a public drunk or something, or really like test like the laws of like a certain because ninth house is travel, foreign countries. I would not be like, I'm just going to go be an ass to myself, because chances are that will backfire on you. But you could really there could be a lot of action and motivation around travel things. Lastly, this could this in much more rarer cases, this could represent like an ongoing legal matter or action involving a legal matter. I think that's all for that I want to say with Scorpio for this. For Sagittarius, Mars is going to be in your eighth house. So this is really an interesting one because the eighth house represents, first of all, on a really mundane level, it represents shared finances. So finances that we share with our partner, or that have to do with like loans or debts, investments, insurance, these kinds of things. There's a lot of action in this arena. So it may be that we are changing a lot of things around, that we're withdrawing from one account, that we're starting another account over here. It could be that there is frankly some strife, and how to properly allocate these funds, or perhaps there are some just events kind of occurring kind of within these things. The eighth house also represents matters concerning mortality. So things connected to like a will or your estate. There could be frankly some conflict around those things, maybe with family members, connected to that. Or it could just be like, like what is fair? How do we divide things equally when it comes to you and sort of shared finances? It could also be that this is a time that you're really desiring more credit, access to loans, access to other people's money, access to grants or financial aid. And you could really be spending a lot of time like trying to get those things, or just spending a lot of time in that energy, because eighth house represents, again, other people's money. On the emotional or spiritual level, the eighth house can represent, frankly, like emotional baggage sometimes, like unprocessed emotional stuff. So you may be kind of processing maybe unhealed trauma, frankly, because the eighth house can be about, because the eighth house is about death, right? So this can be about like maybe things that you've gone through in your past you haven't really fully digested, and this Mars and Cancer transit can kind of trigger it and wake it up. So I'd be really aware of your emotional triggers right now. And yeah, okay, cool. So I'm going to say meditation, spiritual stuff that might be really helpful for you with Mars and Cancer for Sagittarius rising. For Capricorn rising, Mars is going to be transiting through your 7th house. So Capricorn Cancer is your opposite sign, so therefore it's going to be in your 7th house of partnership. So motivation, action, energy, but also conflict. Like let's get things going, things heating up concerning your platonic relationships, your romantic relationships, any kind of one-on-one relationship space. This feels like things could be like you made like on one hand, it could be like some infighting or fighting within these partnerships. On the other hand, it could be like these partnerships kind of heating up and like you kind of taking like there's action around these. It's like actually let's go from just like associates to like actually doing something together, right? The thing is, if it involves working with other people, Mars is not a cozy energy; it has teeth. So there is going to be some degree of uncomfortableness, with when it comes to collaborating, when it comes to your partnerships. But at the same time, you may be really like feel motivated to work on these or to do something together or work on some kind of joint project together. It's like Mars wants action, essentially. So I would also say if you are the type to not speak up for yourself or speak up for your needs, this would be a time when you're going to have to do it. You're going to have to learn how to uh, approach conflict in a constructive and healthy way because there will be some with Mars in your 7th house. This can also describe other people. It could be that other like that people in your like relationships. Uh, I'm going to be honest too. Mars is about severing and cutting, so you may find yourself ending relationships or ending certain agreements, like contractual agreements that are not fair. Particularly when Mars goes retrograde, when we get into like December and January. But yeah, so because severing and separation is one quality of Mars, so that may be happening for you in your 7th house. So again, there's a lot coming up for you on partnerships, and I'm not saying that like, oh, everything is going wrong and you're definitely splitting up and separating. I'm just listening. I am just listing what could be possibilities because you are going to feel this kind of fiery energy in your partnership sector coming up over the next several months. Aquarius rising. Mars is going to be in your 6th house. So I would definitely, okay, so 6th house is health and work and also domesticated pets like dogs, cats, birds, that kind of thing. So on one hand, Mars, motivation, action, energy, right? This could be you pursuing other work assignments, getting a second job, getting a job. Like really kind of stepping it up in your workplace, right? At the same time, 6th house can also be coworkers, people that work for you. So there could be maybe some conflict going on in the workplace. Perhaps you're involved in it, perhaps not, but either way, it might be kind of in your sphere. This could describe some sort of discord, again, like within work or within whatever. If you're a self-employed person, this can be a more frankly turbulent time of like, okay, like I'm gonna really go after these work things, right? Or go after these kind of freelance projects. But you might have more energy for these things, but at the same time, it's not the most comfortable energy. I mean, Mars is just not comfortable. But again, I don't know your chart. I don't know your life. You could have a really great experience where you're only feeling like the positive part, but I kind of want to let you know of both possibilities. With health, this might be like a time that you're like, I'm going to take action. Like we're going to exercise. We're going to take care of ourselves. We're going to get all this shit done, baby. I would say to not overdo it. This could also, if you're not taking care of yourself, definitely this frankly can increase like the risk of, I'm going to say don't take unnecessary risks with your health because Mars going through the 6th house, it can kind of bring some kind of like, Mars can inflame, right? So we're talking about physical health that can kind of inflame things. So you want to take steps to sort of safeguard your health. This could also be a time where there's just a lot of action regarding pets. It could not be a work or health thing. It could be like, like, oh, my dog like bit the other one. I'm having trouble training them, and I ended up with another pet over here. I'm kind of describing my aunt who has several pets, so and is a very active sixth house. Um, so there could just be more action for you, like regarding pets. But so essentially, work, health, your work grind, work routines, health, and health routines. This is going to get some more action, energy, motivation, but also just maybe a little bit more strife and a little bit more turbulence here as well. For Pisces rising, Mars is in the fifth house. Things I think might really be heating up as far as romantic life is concerned for you. That's one of the things, because fifth house represents romance and pleasure and sex. So it could be that you're like, I'm horny, or like, there's just simply more action relating to this area of your chart, right? The other parts of it are the fifth house also represents children, because guess what happens when you have sex if you're in heterosexual coupling? Oftentimes children. Also with things connected to creativity and creative projects, you could just really have a lot more passion, frankly, more passion to spark something creative in your life, or give, or to, but frankly, there could be strife around it too. It's like, maybe, let's say you're an artist and you're like, I feel all this creativity, but at the same time, I can't get the sculpture to look right. Or, or when it comes to like your dating life, it's like, it's really hot, but we're kind of like, we fight and then make love afterward, and with children, it's like there could be a lot more action, a lot more things happening with your children. It could be that you're maybe just not getting along with them very well, or simply there's just a lot more action. So there's action, energy, motivation regarding these fifth house topics, but also possibly the sort of strife as well. So, anywho, so that is what we have for the readings for the signs here. So that's this episode on Mars and Cancer. Make sure that you I don't know. What am I saying here? Visit all my links. Say hi to me. My brain is kind of done at the end of this episode. If you listen to the audio version, please rank. Please give it 5 stars. Leave me a nice comment. Same thing on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss an episode. Episodes come out weekly. Next episode, I will be talking about I'll be walking through a sample chart someone sent to me and looking at the eclipses for them. And I'm not really sure what else I'm going to be talking about. We're talking about something. There's always something happening with astrology. So until next time, thanks for listening. Talk to you soon.